welcome back. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to take around, well, not so much time, let's say 4 minutes, and I want you to factor the following trinomial. So there we go. There we go. So now let's see what do we have. So we have to factor this trinomial, right? So now this will be f of x equals, right? My two polynomials, right? So now I'm looking for two numbers that add up to -3 and multiply to -4. Again, this looks like x, and then two numbers that add up to -3 multiply to -4. I'm thinking that's x minus 4 and x plus 1. There we go. So now the second question, it asks when is f of x equal to 0. Alright? So now let's set that up. So I have that f of x is equal to x minus 4 times the quantity of x plus 1. So now I want to know when is this equal to 0, right? So I know that this is equal to 0 when either of this is equal to 0, right? So then that gives us two cases, right? So we have that either x minus 4 has to be equal to 0, or we have that x plus 1 has to be equal to 0. So now, again, it all goes back to linear equations, because all we have to do is just solve for x now. So that means that this is equal to 0 when x is equal to 4, and this is equal to 0 when x is equal to -1. So now that kind of gave us a point, or 2 points. So now that means that your function is equal to 0 when x is equal to 4, or 1, 0. So now notice, what have we found? So you have a number for your x value, but your y value is 0. That's what we call x-intercept, okay? So now, this is kind of like the cool thing about factoring, because now this and this, it gives you your x-intercepts. So now, let's see if we can do a problem. So we want to factor this, right? So I'm looking at the sum has to be equal to 10. Oh, has to be equal to 10. And then the product has to be equal to 24. So then we just have to write that in. The sum has to be equal to 10. The product has to be equal to 24. So now for the next one, I'm looking at the sum has to be -12. The product has to be 20. The one after that, I'm looking at the sum has to be -4. The product has to be -21. And then I have that the sum has to be 6. The product has to be -16. There we go. What do we have? So now, for the first one, two numbers that add up to 8 multiplies to 15, okay? So, again, polynomials, right? This will be x times x. And then two numbers that add up to 8 multiplied to 15, I'm thinking that'll be 3 and 5. There we go. So now for the next one. Again, I know what they look like, so this will be x. There we go. Let's get the x's in there. There we go. And then what are we looking for? Two numbers that add up to 9 multiplied to 20. So I'm thinking that'll be 4 and 5. So this would be plus 4, and this would be plus 5. There we go. So now, for the next one, look, this we have that our leading coefficient is 2, right? But then, look, this is 2, this is 10, and this is 12. So now, I can factor out a 2 out of this trinomial. So now, I can factor out a 2, right? So then this would be equals 2. I'm going to factor out 2, so this would be 2 times x squared plus 5x. And I wrote this as 10x squared. This should have been 10x, okay? So let's just stick down off the way. So that's 5x plus 6. There we go. So now, this will be equals 2. 2. I know what the function looks like after I factor it out. So this will be x, and this will be x. And then I'm looking for two numbers that add up to 5 multiplied to 6. So I'm thinking that should be 2 and 3. So this will be plus 2, and then this will be plus 3. There we go. So now, let's go ahead and do the next one. So we have the same scenario, right? We have 5, we have 50, and we have 45s. So now, all this, they are multiples of 5. So we can factor our 5. So this will be equals 2. This will be 5 times, and this would be x squared plus 10x plus 9. There we go. And then this would be equals 2. Again, I'm just going to write down my 5. I know what my function looks like, which I'm going to break it down into 2. And then what do we have? I need a different color. Let's get down. So we have that this will be x, this will be x. And then I'm looking for two numbers that add up to 10 multiplied to 9. So I'm thinking that's 1 and 9. 1. And there we go. So now for the next one, I want you to take a minute and see if you can do this one by yourself, okay? Alright, so this one's a little tricky because you have a 2. You have a 2, but then 5 or negative 5 is not divisible by 2. So that kind of creates a problem. So you just gotta like factor it straight up. It doesn't work. So I'm gonna show you a new method, right? So now, for something like this, you kind of like want to play with the polynomial. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to take this 2, I'm going to slide it, and then I'm going to multiply by your last term, okay? So now, this will give me x squared minus 5x plus 4. So now, let's see, what do we have? I have this, I want to factor out into two polynomials, right? I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to positive 4, add up to negative 5, right? So this looks like an x, x, and then those two numbers should be negative 1 and negative 4. Okay? So now, because I divided and multiplied by 2, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. So then this one, I'm going to divide by 2, and then I'm going to divide by 2. To just kind of like go back to what I had at the beginning. So now let's see, what do we have? We have that this now becomes x minus a half, and then I have that this is x minus 2. So now, there we go. I'm going to kind of like play around with this one a little bit. So this one, I'm going to multiply by 2. I'm going to move this 2, I'm going to put it up front. So then again, I will get that this will be equal to 2x minus 1 times x minus 2. There we go. So now, let's see. Let's kind of like, let's double check our work. So now let's multiply, right? So this will be equals to 2x times x. It's going to be 2x, 2x squared. 2x times negative 2 is going to be negative 4x. And then we have that negative 1 times x is going to be negative x. And then we have that negative 1 times negative 2 is going to be positive 2. And then let's combine like terms, okay? So then this will be equals to 2x squared minus 5x plus 2. Now let's see. Is that what we started with? There we go. So that's what it is. So you have to be really careful. And I should take this out. Because this steps here, there is the steps here, they're actually not equal to the one you started with, right? So you have to be careful not to put an equal sign, because that's not true. But then notice how I put in the equal sign, because then this will be equal to the one that we started with. So you have to be really careful. This is kind of like this portion right here. This is just you just doing kind of work on the side, okay? So now we have something similar, right? We have a 3, a 1, and a 2. So now notice all these numbers are prime. So therefore, those numbers, they don't have anything in common, okay? So now, let's see. We're gonna divide and slide. And it's also called slip and slide. So let's do it. So I'm going to take the 3, I'm going to slide it, and I'm going to multiply by the negative 2. So now we have, we have that x squared plus x minus x, right? So now I'm going to factor this out. So this would be x, this would be x, x, and then this will be what? I'm thinking this would be -2, and then my second one will be +3. There you go. So now, since I divide and slide it by 3, I'm going to divide by 3. There we go. So now, let's see, what do we have? We have x minus 2/3 times x. 3 divided by 3, that's 1, so this will be +1. There we go. So now, I'm going to rewrite this, and then this is where I'm going to put my equal sign, okay? So this will be equals to the 3, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to multiply it, which is pretty much just multiplying the whole thing by 3, so this would be, what color am I using? There we go. So this would be 3x minus 2, and then this would be times x plus, there we go, plus 1. There we go. Just a little info, so your homework, the way it will be graded again, I should have already said this by now, but I'm just gonna say it again. So on your homework, this is how it will be graded. So one problem, this is one problem, but this is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps in it. So this one problem will be worth 4 points, okay? Just so you know, because the points are getting a little bigger because some of you are just giving me the answers. So that's just me just trying to help you out. So for those of you that are actually doing the work, you get credit for it. Let's do this one. I'm gonna give you a minute to read it. This is actually a problem from the book, so you can kind of like go ahead and read it. So we have, let's start with the function, right? H of t is equal to 15t minus 16t squared, right? So we want to know how long was the ball in the air, right? So what's the height for the ball when it hits the ground? It will be 0, right? So now I know that h of t has to be equal to 0, right? We have that 15t minus 16t squared is equal to 0. Now, I'm going to factor out t. So this will be t times 15 minus 16t. And then this will be equal to 0. So now, we know that this is going to be equal to 0 when t is equal to 0, or 15 minus t squared is equal to 0. So let's go ahead and set those up. So now, this will be equal to 0 when t is equal to 0, or when 15 minus 16t is equal to 0. So now all we have to do is solve for the 15 minus t equals 0, which should give you t is equal to, let's see, this would be 15 divided by 16, and I think this would be in seconds. Let me just double check my units. Those are feet per second, yep. So this is unit of time, so this will be seconds. And this is also seconds. Well, this is not, given our time, the time that we have, this is not a good problem, because it says when the justices of the Supreme Court assemble to go on the bench each day, each justice shakes hands with each other for a total of 36 handshakes, okay? Which is, again, given our situation, this is not good. You know, if you don't live under a rock, you know that there's 9 justices, right? There's 9 judges, right? So your answer, just by knowing and going outside, it should be 9, right? So let's see. So you have that h is equal to n squared minus n divided by 2, right? So h is how many handshakes, right? So this would be 36 equals n squared minus n divided by 2, right? So now I want to solve for n, right? So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. And now I want to write this in standard form, so I'm going to subtract 72 from both sides. That add up to -1, multiply to -72. So I'm thinking that that should be -9 and +8. So now, then again, this is going to be equal to 0 when n minus 9 is equal to 0, or when n plus 8 is equal to 0. So now solving for this one, I have that n is equal to 9, and then I have that n is equal to -8, right? 2 answers, but now you got to look at the problem. So is it possible for you to have a negative amount of people in the Supreme Court? Absolutely not. So now this one, this is a no, and then it gets you that you have 9 judges. And then for the next one, that's kind of something that you should be doing just so you're not kind of like guessing. It's like hoping for the best when you do these problems. It's like, how can you tell if you factor a problem correctly, right? So if you multiply the 2, it should give you what you started with, okay?